edition of Politricked here on the Got What You Need Network. Of course, I'm your host, Sky, and I hope everybody's doing well. Please be sure to check out all the podcasts on our channel. We have Talking with E, we have Life and Love, we have the Black Male Podcast, as well as Encourage and Inspire. And now you're tuned in to Politricked. Today we're going to talk about the Democrats really having an underlying problem of race. We'll definitely talk about the big bill and just all what comes with it, and how we should respond. I know a lot of people feel helpless and things like that, but it's always hope. Definitely going to talk about the city worker strike in Philly, some deadly Texas floods that shine a light on the current administration making major cuts to the National Weather Program. And yeah, like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more. And we'll end with some foreign policy and some foreign issues, let's say. All right, let's start with the Dems. So I started this show saying that they have an underlying racism problem, and they do. And I'll give you 3 examples of when people sit back and say, well, if the Republicans are this bad or the GOP is this bad, why can't Dems get control of the government? And I'm going to give you 3 examples why they can't. I don't know if y'all remember the CRT argument, the critical race theory argument. And yeah, that came from the right, but then it was adopted by progressives and someone on the left alike. And they started to equate critical race theory, CRT, which is a college-based curriculum, and made false accusations that it was trickling down as far as middle school. I had people that I know personally that argue with me, you don't know what's being taught in my daughter's class. I'm like, yes, I do. I know that's not being taught. like, come on, man. But here was a chance for some white parents who maybe not be racist, so to speak, but yeah, they wanted parts of Jim Crow and that time and time before that either suppressed or totally taken out of their curriculum. Now, be clear, in most middle schools, you don't even get taught this. You're being taught social studies. And when you get to high school, that's when you have your U.S. history 1 and 2 requirements. And, obviously, you'll be talking about U.S. American history at some of its darkest times. But let me let y'all in on a little something. That what we were taught in school is like the PG version of Jim Crow. You didn't find out that they were feeding babies to alligators, and you were taught a feel-good story about George Washington's dentures, quote unquote. If you heard about Billie Holiday when they tried to talk about the musical contributions of Black people in U.S. history, you may have heard of a Tisket a Tasket, but they wouldn't bring up strange fruit. So trust me, like, what's being taught is very, very toned down, because if it was taught in its totality and from a more accurate standpoint, the story of Columbus would be taught differently. I mean, that man's a rapist, like, and a murderer. No matter what attention he brought to this hemisphere with his, his voyages or whatever, they were voyages of terror. But I bring this up, right, to say that now they parlay that fear and nonsense into what is now we're dealing with in Project 2025. And that was written by a white supremacist, Stephen Miller. And we're basically seeing line by line that playbook being played out. But you see how something that people might think is harmless, I really don't want my kids to really learn about that either. And you join on to a movement with one intention, but then it grows and it blows up into an entire thing that's now destroying this country thread by thread. And yes, race is at the bottom of that. And I don't want just the Project 25 authors to be the ones to blame here. Those that joined in that CRT scare, that fake CRT scare, are just as complicit. My second point is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Now, besides being a rising star in the Democratic Party, this second-term Congresswoman has, because of her popularity, has been able to travel all over the country and raise over $4 million for her fellow Democrats. And you think that, that would indicate that, she's for the squad, she's for the team, and this, that, and the other. But since she's expressed a desire to be chairman of oversight, now there's talks that she's not a team player. Now, don't get me wrong. The old guard versus the new flavor has always been a conflict in every industry, in sports and corporate America, and the list goes on and on and on. My problem was to make it public and to make it seem like she's not a team player and try to like publicly knock her down to size or whatever. Like, that's the part that bothers me. Here we pretend like we want to be like this party of inclusion and that we are this party of inclusion. But anytime somebody wants to take a step up, get a promotion, better themselves, there's always this confusing and bewildering pushback against it. And it's very sad, man. It's almost like, hey, keep doing what you're doing, but stay in your place, little girl. So I got a big problem with that. And my last point about the Dems is the recent New York City Democratic mayoral primary. Mandani won fair and square. Zoran Mandani. He had a 7-point margin over Cuomo. And if you ran, and that was with everybody involved. If you ran them head to head, it was a double-digit win over Cuomo. My problem there was that the establishment really got behind former Governor Andrew Cuomo. And I have a problem with that. Bill Clinton endorsing him, whatever. Bloomberg, he's always been an independent. But when the establishment gets behind a governor that had to resign in disgrace because he was accused of sexual misconduct with, I believe, 13 of his former staffers. Then, as he tried to, I guess, sue them civilly, requested, I believe, like vaginal records from their gynecologist. Some point to issues with nursing homes. The nursing home situation during COVID was bad. It was bad in many states, and I'm not excusing Cuomo for that. I think it's bad when you fudge the numbers. It's horrible when you fudge the numbers. That being said, we already knew that with COVID being, I guess, a virus that attacks compromised people, that it was going to definitely take a toll on the elderly. So I really won't beat him up that bad about that. But my problem is with the establishment. Like, as soon as he won, Kirsten Gillibrand, U.S. Senator from New York, came out with the racist attack that she had to backpedal from. Then Congressman and Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, wouldn't endorse him, wouldn't say he support him, but then wanted to question like some of the things he said or whatever. What happened to the primary is the contest, and whoever comes out of the primary, the party gets behind. But now we got all of this Islamophobia going on, and it's so sad. It's sad and it's disturbing. Here you have a Muslim candidate that won decisively in the city that has the second amount of Jews next to Jerusalem. And you don't think that this mayor can bring new people to the party and help the city of New York. I just find it sad, and I find it wrong, and I wish we get over this Muslim thing and move on, because if we went to the other side, we could have some conversations that people don't want to have, and if you do have them, then you're considered, anti-Semitic or whatever. So I just urge the Democratic Party to please get it together. As we move on, the big bill, the nonsense. So it passed. I just want to touch on a few things that Speaker Johnson didn't have the votes. And they didn't have the votes in the Senate either. And while everybody's attacking the senator from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski, pay attention to some of the things she said afterwards. She said the pressure is real. The retaliation is real. And I don't want to excuse her, but to not know what's on the other end of that phone when they're talking to you, I can't totally fault her. The problem is the pressure campaign. Speaker Johnson didn't have the votes. The last holdouts from the GOP were ready to vote no. And then they were scurried into a room and handed a phone. And then all of a sudden, one by one, they changed their votes. Speaker Johnson held the voting open longer than any vote in U.S. House history, just so they'd have time to implement the Trump pressure machine. to get the bill passed. So now we know that there will be custom Medicaid, like drastic ones. And be clear, that was a backhanded way to pull a bunch of people off of insurance that were insured by the Affordable Care Act. And they can't totally get rid of that. So this is a way to gut it to where it's less effective. This is once again, that part is about Obama. But when we talk about that, we don't talk about, once again, underlying issues like closing of rural hospitals. And in rural areas, medical care is already sketchy. And then you want to make it even harder for people in rural areas to go. And people in urban areas, excuse me, I'm stuttering. You're not out of the woods yet. I know you see these urgent cares. I'm about to say urban care. These urgent care places popping up everywhere on every corner on the highway. They're not subject to the same rules as a hospital. And I mean, besides the limited services that they can provide, they are not bound by the same rules as a hospital, meaning they can deny service. Now, there are, I believe, some answers in which people can be proactive about. I know that there are at least, I've just been kind of Googling my area, and there's at least 4 to 6. Two, I'm not quite sure that it would be affordable, but there's at least 4 local medical groups that have their own practice, and within that practice, they offer benefits like medical benefits to use. They're at the doctor, but they also have emergency room care and things of that or whatever. And some of the rates are pretty much comparable to what you would pay if you were getting insurance through your employer. So that might be like one way around it. But another way around it is just to work hard, keep the message out there of what this bill will do to American citizens in red areas, and attempt to run the numbers up in 2026 to where you can repeal it even over a presidential veto. Now, I know I'm thinking big and bold or what have you, but that is an answer. This bill also contains major cuts to SNAP. So not only are people poorer and working class people who either have no or very little medical care, but there are also going to be plenty of families that are going to go to sleep hungry as well. We don't have enough food banks in this country to withstand the cuts in SNAP that they're talking about. And then what's so sad about this is they're only trying to redirect these funds to give tax breaks to the wealthy and to pad DHS. So, like, he can have his personal police force just go around the country terrorizing Americans. And what we're finding out is that many of them are Proud Boy members. Some are from January 6th. And for people saying, oh, that's a rumor, Trump literally started a app for ICE to like find people or whatever. And it was designed by the Tario dude. So let's stop it, man. And we're letting too much criminality go unchecked when I had to hear about Hunter Biden and that damn laptop forever. we're going to move on. And I'm laughing, but this is not a funny matter that I'm about to talk about. There's a city worker strike in Philadelphia. And I know a lot of attention is being brought to the sanitation workers, but I also believe the medical examiners walked out as well. I believe they're being ordered back. I don't know if they're going to return, and I haven't gotten any information of affirmative or not. But when I do, you'll be the first to know about it. Um, but one of the big things that's happening with the city worker strike is garbage pickup, and garbage is piling up all over the city of Philadelphia, and even where they have the big dumpster set up for people to bring their trash to, people are just getting out and just throwing it on the side because they don't want to throw it over the ledge of the dumpster or whatever. I mean, it's not their job anyway. You're not going to relax their taxes until the strike is over, and that's part of what people's taxes pay for, and that's whether it's property tax, payroll tax, or whatever. So, what I know is it's really starting to divide some residents, because some residents are looking at it as like, hey, I got a truck, I got a few guys, let's go make some money picking up people's trash because people don't want the trash in front of their houses. But then there's some that say that action, although you're just trying to hustle and you view it as helping your fellow citizens and your neighbors, many view that action as actually crossing the picket line, which is viewed as very, very disrespectful, and it basically takes the teeth out of a strike if the people that's being striked against are able to, bring in a substitute, or let's say a scab squad, for a lack of a better term. So it's a funny situation. I see both sides of it. I believe the mayor won't make it out of this. She won't make it out of this incident without paying a price at the ballot box. She already has upset a city with a heavy Muslim population when she pledged like a blind support to Israel with no mention of any of the legitimate charges of genocide and purposely killing people in line for food and purposely killing aid workers. We have undeniable proof of the three things that I just said. And not one mention of that, but just only, Israel, Israel, Israel. All right, speaking of Israel, Cyprus, which is run by Greece and Turkey, government officials have concerns over large land purchases in the southern part of the island. And it was so bad that the government came in and deemed the sales illegal and made the people sell the land back. And if you don't know, because of the war with Iran that's going on right now, a lot of people in Israel fled to Cyprus, and the people of Cyprus are bringing up concerns that part of their island is being cornered off and being made into areas only for Jewish people, and they find that to be wrong. They're saying that synagogues are going up. I don't know how true that is. I don't think you could just. I guess you can take a already existing building and convert into a synagogue in the areas. Israel has already came out with charges of anti-Semitism because they're saying that the people in the government of Cyprus are only singling out Jewish actions, and the people of Cyprus are saying, well, the people from Israel that are fleeing are trying to come over and find an area of our island to have as their own versus coming, and if they decide to stay, being a part of Cyprus. And they find that very, very troubling and problematic. And let's be clear, Turkey and Israel are already on the edge, and they own, I believe it's like 36% of the island. And they got that part, I believe, as a result of a war in 1974. I think the Greek army did invade the island and tried to pretty much just make it all one. And they got a attack from Turkey, and they were able to commandeer a counterattack from Turkey, and they were able to commandeer 36% of some change. And like I said, if they get any kind of inkling that there's any type of like Israeli commandeering of like major swaths of land, I think that could lead to a conflict between Israel and Turkey. But let's just be clear. We need to keep our eyes open. There are verified UN reports, International Court, Geneva Convention. I forgot the other organization, I'm sorry, that have all verified that there is genocide going on in Gaza, perpetuated by the IDF. They have reports, according to the Huffington Post, that 2 American security workers were caught on tape shooting at people going to get food and then bragging about it. Ooh, I hit one. And I watched the video. So this isn't allegedly. This is what they did, and they're being investigated on. And now they haven't been charged, and they won't be, but there's this investigation. I don't know why that's not disturbing to everyone, no matter what your religion, race, creed, whether you're a Jew or a Gentile. That should bother you. The fact that while everybody's paying attention to what's going on in Gaza, that in the West Bank, they are burning Palestinian settlements to take land. So we really need to pay attention to the attempted ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian race. In Mexico, Mexico City, oh man, I think it's Tulum, and one other area are facing protests against gentrification and some tourism. And they're saying that these factors are driving up prices, that is pretty much making areas of the country unaffordable for native Mexican residents. They've already started attacking homes, pulling down tents of American um, businesses, and yeah, it's a bunch of graffiti and defacing and a bunch of stuff going on. And I'm not condoning any of the violent actions perpetuated by the Mexican people, whether I think they are right or wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be committing a crime. But Mexico's been here before, guys. Like, they basically lost half of their country to the United States. I know y'all hear about, um, you know, the Spanish American War. And you just think, oh, they must have had a disagreement or whatever. They had a disagreement because the Mexican government was cool with the U.S. at the time. The new U.S. government at the time. I believe Harry Truman was the president, and was like, sure, you can use the northern part of our country for some of your citizens to settle and so on and so forth. But they brought slaves, and Mexico didn't want that. And so then they offered to buy, from like Texas to California for, I believe it was 15 million. And Mexico said no. So then, after the war, they purchased the land. No, they offered 20 million, and then after the war, they paid 15 million, basically giving them a $5 million haircut, for the war. So, but we're not going that deep that, like, America or any of the other countries that heavily visit Mexico is trying to take over land to make another country, or make part of the United States or anything like that. But if they start to make parts of Mexico to where Mexicans don't feel welcome, that could be just as bad. I mean, they had to be told by the Mexican president to take partitions down on their beach houses, because since they bought a house on the beach, they thought that came with like ownership of the beach. In Mexico, don't play that. Claudia said the beaches is for everybody. They even protested mariachi bands being on the beach, which they always are. So I just want to tell, whether they're American tourists, Canadian tourists, and whoever else tunes into this podcast, you need to respect the laws of the land and have a respect for the customs and the regular happenings that go on in the place that either you're visiting or relocating to. And you're going down a dangerous road, especially in this time, this volatile time all over the world. We have conflicts everywhere. We all, Ukraine and Russia are still going at it. India and Pakistan lining up again. We already know, Iran and Israel. We still have fighting over in the Congo, and then we still have coup attempts coming out of Ivory Coast against Burkina Faso in Africa, in Western Africa. So once again, I'm not going to sit here and vandalism and destruction of property, but people need to beware of moving somewhere or trying to take over somewhere, and what type of consequences that might come with. So just like we wouldn't want, people to come over and, take over our country. Like, that's why we're deporting people and this, that, and the other. And some people might point to areas and cities and they'll say, well, what about, little Haiti? And I'm like, what about little Italy? Like we don't talk, like if we're going to talk about the brown areas that aren't basically saying that no one can come, it's just saying that here's a piece of our culture and our country that you can get here in the United States. And all the U.S. settlers in Mexico and the U.S. tourists and UK and Canadian tourists in Mexico have to do is just follow the rules, man, and show some respect and stop being on this. I live here, and even though it's not my native country, I get to control who I see and who's around me and all that kind of stuff. It's not going to work down there, okay? All right, that's my time. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode. But until then, y'all be positive and productive. And please support the other great podcasts on this network. Once again, that's the Encourage and Inspire podcast, Talking with E, Life and Love, the Black Male Podcast. And you're now tuned in to Politricked. All right, peace.